Are you a Tory till the day you die?
Oh, absolutely.
So you'll never join Reform?
Never, ever, ever. We've seen that playbook before. We know where it leads. If Reform were in government today on the economy, they would be a present danger to this country.
I haven't spoken to a single senior Tory here at the conference who thinks that Kemi Badenoch will still be in her job at the general election. Do you have absolute faith that she will?
Kemi Badenoch is our leader. If anybody out there thinks that Tory party getting involved in another internal election contest is somehow going to advance our fortunes, they are deluded.
Does the Tory party have a God-given right to exist? Hello and welcome to the Fourcast. We're in Manchester for the Conservative Party conference where the Tories are in turmoil, trailing badly in the polls and facing electoral oblivion. With Labour in power and Nigel Farage's Reform UK surging ahead, Shadow Chancellor Sir Mel Stride joins me to explain how the Conservatives plan to regain momentum and rebuild their reputation as the party of economic competence. Are they simply an irrelevance? Well, Sir Mel, you've been talking about cutting welfare to fund this national insurance rebate to help people buy first homes. You're being called Millet Stride after Javier Millet, the chainsaw-wielding cutter-in-chief in Argentina. Do you like that comparison?
I don't think I trust myself with a chainsaw. I think it might be a terrible accident would happen. But look, what I'm saying is that we need to recognise that we are living beyond our means as a country. You're seeing that in the size of the debt that we're carrying. You're seeing that in the servicing costs on that debt. About 100 billion a year, twice what we spend on defence.
Yeah, the rot started under your government.
Well, we did have the small matter of COVID and the contraction in the economy that occurred and a lot of money that needed to be spent at that time, about 400 billion. And Labour and all the other parties were urging us, if you remember, to go even further than we did. So I think there were some exceptional circumstances. But the reality remains that we need to have a recognition now that if we carry on the way we are, the wheels will come off our economy and it will be bad for all of us. So what we've been saying in my speech today is that we are serious about making savings across government so that we can get the debt down, but also do through time things on tax that will help with the economy. And I had announcements to make on that too.
Well, and one of the announcements is restricting benefits only to British citizens. Exactly the same policy as Reform.
The difference between us and Reform is that we have thought very carefully through the measures that we're putting forward. Reform, for example, have said that they will take everybody up to £20,000 out of income tax altogether. That comes with a price tag, according to the IFS, of up to £80 billion. About half what we spend on the NHS every year with its 1.5 million employees. They have not explained to any degree how they will fund that or any plan to actually deliver on it. They are fantasy economists, and what we're talking about is well thought through savings that we can deliver.
Well, is it well thought through though? Because some of your sums look a little bit sketchy. EU citizens with settled status have to access benefits because of the withdrawal agreement. So that takes quite a big chunk out of the potential savings.
But they're not in our calculation.
No, exactly, they're not. But some of your frontbench colleagues are saying unpick that withdrawal agreement. Is that on the agenda? Should that be looked at?
As things stand, there is a treaty arrangement with the European Union. We are not speaking about going in and trying to renegotiate.
You say
that.
As things stand. You could in the future unpick that.
Well, no, I'm not going to predict what happens in the future.
Yeah, but some of your colleagues are saying you should be.
Well, they may do, and that's fine. That's fine for them to express their views.
To fly that
that's
kite.
fine.
You might do it in the future.
People will have. No, I didn't say that. What I said was that we have a treaty arrangement with Europe, and that treaty stands, and that's why we have excluded EU nationals from that particular change.
So just again on the sums, you didn't back the government's own welfare cuts of £5.5 billion. That was just political opportunism, was to oppose that.
No, not at all. Because if you remember how that came about, was that Rachel Reeves was approaching the spring statement, discovered from the OBR suddenly that all the headroom had disappeared again, second time round, and needed to find some money, and shouted over to DWP, find me 5 billion plus. In fact, she shouted over twice because they came back with one lot and then she found it wasn't quite enough on the revised OBR figures. That's not a way to drive welfare reform.
Okay.
By being sort of pulled along by the fiscal rules and so on. And that's why it wasn't principled and it wasn't the right thing to have done and we opposed it.
Even so, you're talking about, having worked out all your figures, therefore you're more responsible than Reform, more responsible from Labour, more responsible than Labour in their last set of cuts. But saving £8 billion from cutting civil servants, £3.5 billion by axing asylum hotels. You could have done both of those things in government. The costs of those two policies ballooned while you were in government.
So civil servants in particular, the numbers ballooned because we had the Brexit and we also had COVID.
Which you pushed through. I mean, that was
which we had
policy.
COVID, so the numbers went up. But you were quite right. We are under new leadership now and we recognise that we do not need that number of civil servants.
And mistakes were made on your watch.
We did great things when we were in government and we made mistakes like all the governments do. But the reality is to get back that number, which is a 25% cut, to where it was in 2016, given we don't now have those particular pressures, and we got things like AI and productivity driving technology, that is eminently achievable. And we will do that over a period of 5 years after the next election if we're elected.
You're trying to find the middle ground of British politics. You've got Reform on one end, you've got Labour in power, you're trying to sort of find this middle road. Does it exist though? Does the centre not hold anymore? A liberal-minded Tory is going to just go and vote Lib Dem next time?
Well, it's interesting that you characterise Reform as being to the right. I would say they're marching to the left. So they want
they are in some ways and not in others.
No, they want a national...
economically to the left, socially to the right.
Well, there we are. If your premise is they're economically to the left, in my terms as the Shadow Chancellor, they are to the left. So they want to nationalise things and utilities. They want to abolish the two-child benefit cap. That means spending more on welfare, not less, an extra £3.5 billion a year. Those are the kind of policies, well, frankly, actually, of a party that will just go out and say what it thinks the various people it's talking to want them to say.
But why should a centrist Tory vote for you? That's my point. I mean, you had John Curtis, the pollster, saying that as things stand at the moment, the Lib Dems would win more seats than you. So, liberal Tories will just go, well, let's go
Cathy,
Lib Dems.
We can't be led by where the polls are today as to
You're
what
sure
we
going to look
do.
at them, right?
As to what we do for an election that will probably be in 4 years' time. What we've got to do is hold our nerves, stay true to our conservative principles, set out policies when it's right to do so and when we've done the thinking. We've done that at this conference. One of the things that I don't think anybody will be able to leave this conference and say is we don't know what the Conservatives stand for. On borders, we've been very clear on the ECHR, big, bold move. We thought about it carefully. We had Lord Wolfson do all that work. And on the economy, the things that I've been saying this morning about living within our means, but also showing that whilst a lot of that money needs to go to bearing down on the debt, we can, if we do this, make the savings, actually get some taxes down that will get the economy going.
Does the Tory party have a God-given right to exist? Or when it comes to the next election, if Reform end up the biggest party, do you have to just throw in your lot with them?
But all these hypotheticals about 4 years' time. Look, the big thing about politics today is uncertainty. If you were interviewing me in 2019 and I were a socialist, Cathy, you'd be saying, you've just had the worst results since the 1930s. You're going to be out of power for a generation, aren't you, Mel Stride?
So there's all to play for.
And yet the Labour Party get one of the largest landslides in British political history. The same thing you could say of the Canadian election with Pierre Poilievre, 23 points up, came to the election. He not only lost it, but he lost his own seat.
But my point is not
these things will
hypothetical.
move
It's about
around.
you as a person. There's been we'll come to this in a second. There's quite a few facts about Mel Stride that have been floating around this conference. Are you a Tory till the day you die?
Oh, absolutely.
So you'll
I'm
never
a conservative.
join Reform?
Never, ever.
Right, and do you think that holds for a large number of Conservatives, that whatever happens at the next election, you are going to remain as a force?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And what you're seeing at this conference is setting out serious, well thought through policies that are grown up, because we're not sometimes just saying the easy things. I said a lot of things that you're rightly challenging me on and saying, well, can you really afford this? And can you really save that? And all that sounds a bit, these are the things that serious grown up politicians have to do. And we're demonstrating now, right here in Manchester, that we are up for government. We are doing the hard yards, the hard thinking, and we're going to take the serious choice.
So what do you say to colleagues who are thinking about defecting to Reform? There's quite a lot of them.
Well, I don't know who's thinking of doing that or not, but I would say if it's on the basis that you think that it's a foregone conclusion, that you know the outcome of a general election in 4 years' time, then if that's the basis on which you're moving, I would be thinking again.
And
nobody
you would
knows where it's
personally
going to
not
go.
be part of a merged Tory Reform party?
I see no common ground on, for example, the economy between us and Reform, I see a party that is fiscally irresponsible, that is going out there and promising all sorts of giveaways without properly looking at how that will be funded. We've seen that playbook before. We know where it leads. And if Reform were in government today on the economy, they would be a present danger to this country. So why would I want to get involved?
Question. Right, so you categorically rule out being part of a merged party with Reform.
I am.
Yes.
I am not going to be predicting. You're drawing me into all these hypotheticals.
But you
as
won't
interviewers
rule that
love
out.
to do. It's the great sport, isn't it? But what I'm saying is, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals in the future. But there is
it's very interesting to me that you won't rule that
out.
No,
I am not up for a merger with Reform. I'm not up for joining Reform, and I don't think I could make that much clearer. Yeah, there you go.
You've had welfare cuts, mass deportations, withdrawing from the ECHR. You've even announced a policy today abolishing business rates for high street businesses. I mean, whatever happened to waiting until 2027 for policies?
Isn't that extraordinary? You should ask me that when about a month ago before the conference, you'd be saying, what on earth do you stand for? Where are your policies? Well, now we're coming out with them. You're now saying, well, why didn't you wait?
Yeah, but you know what? The truth is you've panicked.
You can't win. No.
You've got desperate. You've looked at the polls. You say you don't look at the polls, but you do.
Not at all. Not at all. What we are doing, we've said this from the start, is doing the deep thinking around the challenges our country faces and coming up with the right policies. And as we come up with those policies, we will put those policies out there.
Well, you did deep thinking for a year. You were going to do it for two.
I've set out a series of savings totaling £47 billion. It's a large amount of money. And what I'm saying is the majority of that must go to paying down debt, but that leaves some to do other things. And what we've sent today is a very clear signal that we are pro-business. We understand that we need to free businesses up to drive growth. We are reaching out to young people. So the National Insurance First Job Bonus that I announced today is very much a clear message to younger generations that we are on their side. When they go out and do the right thing, when they're aspirational, work hard, we will be there right behind them.
I haven't spoken to a single senior Tory here at the conference who thinks that Kemi Badenoch will still be in her job at the general election. Do you have absolute faith that she will?
Kemi Badenoch is our leader. She has a very clear vision. She has a very clear vision for the Conservative Party. She is somebody who will hold her nerve. She's somebody who's extremely resilient. This is one of the things that people too often dismiss or don't even think about. She's doing the hardest job in British politics. Mine's a pretty hard job. Hers is a much harder job. And she's doing it in a very calm, measured way. If anybody out there thinks that the Tory party getting involved in another internal election contest is somehow going to advance our fortunes, they are deluded.
Well, just
so she is going to be our leader, in my view, right the way through to the general election. And as I say, I think there's all to play for. Look, you mentioned Reform. 31% are they now? You'll know.
Like that,
yeah. Where was the SDP back in 1981?
Oh, you think they're the SDP of today?
No, but I do think the SDP, I know, were at over 50% in the polls. In the 83 election, they got about 20 odd seats.
Just finally,
things can change.
You've absolutely categorically assured us that Kemi Badenoch will still be in post up to the general election. But there's a little list doing the rounds on WhatsApp about 10 things you didn't know about Mel Stride. You're a licensed pilot, a scuba diver, a Stonehenge qualified tour guide. You've penned an unpublished novel set in the 60s US music scene. I mean, you've got quite a hinterland. I wonder whether that list is doing the rounds because you quite fancy, although you crashed out in the last leadership contest, if there's a sort of need for an eminence grise, I mean, not very grey, but a bit grise, firm hand on the tiller to step in to just tide you over to the next general election, you'd be there.
I am there, putting my shoulder to the wheel, supporting Kemi, working with the shadow cabinet to get another Conservative government. And, if people are interested in my wild swimming or novels that weren't published or flying airplanes,
I mentioned the wild swimming.
Great, the wild swimming or whatever else is out there, then great. I think people should know something about their politicians. And, hopefully it's brightened a few lives, knowing that I do all those things.
Sir Mel Stride, thank you very much for joining us. That is it from the Fourcast. Thank you very much for watching. Back soon.